Medical marijuana will soon be available in Alabama. Yesterday, Governor Kay Ivey signed Senate Bill 46 into law, legalizing cannabis for people with certain medical conditions. Our Kelly Kennedy explains what has to happen next to get these products to eligible Alabamians.
A medical marijuana bill has officially been signed into Alabama law, but medical marijuana products won't hit the shelves just yet.
We were hoping the day would come when the law would pass and we would transition from a CBD store into a medical marijuana dispensary.
But it will be over a year before medical cannabis is available to Alabamians. Members of the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission must first be appointed. Then they have to develop the rules on how it can be distributed. There will be a limited number of licensed dispensaries allowed throughout the state. People should be able to start applying for licenses by September next year. The owner of Earthstrong CBD in Madison says this has been a long time coming.
The number one question we get is, I know you don't sell marijuana, but what's the closest thing to it that can help me with my pain, help me with my anxiety, my depression, my ailment?
Over 15 medical conditions are approved, including Parkinson's disease, cancer, depression, and epilepsy. To buy medical marijuana, people must be recommended by a physician and approved for a medical cannabis card.
The patients will need to have first a correct diagnosis or firm diagnosis, and then they will have to try or have tried several standard therapies. So medical cannabis will not be prescribed or recommended as the first or second or even third therapy probably.
The new law does not allow smoking, vaping, or edibles. Dispensaries will only be allowed to sell medical marijuana pills, oils, and inhalers. Putting the Valley first, Kelly Kennedy, WZDX News.